All right, welcome everyone. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Today's press briefing is short and sweet. So as always, put your questions in the chat box. Let me know who you are and who you're with.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Susana Cordova and I'm superintendent here in the Denver Public Schools. Really want to thank everybody for your flexibility around the timing. I spent the morning in our schools today as we're beginning to welcome back our kindergarten students in addition to ECE as part of our gradual re-entry into in-person learning. And so it was terrific to be able to share some time with our teachers and school leaders across the city as we begin to welcome back more of our young learners. So as I mentioned, we are welcoming back kindergartners and in some schools, first graders, as well as students in our special education classrooms in our elementary schools. It really has just been so wonderful to see our youngest learners returning into our classrooms, and particularly fun to see some of the typical sights that we see at the beginning of school, including parents bringing their kids for the kindergarten for the first time. A lot of parent tears, not nearly as many children tears as we sometimes see, but those rituals are so important to all of us. Winna, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, let me get that up here in a bit. If you want to continue on, I'll pull those.
Terrific. Yeah, we've got some photos that are really fun that we can share. Actually, Winna, I think I can do it. Just hold on. Let me see if I have permission to share. I don't think I, let's see. I don't think I can share my screen. I think you'll have to do it. So while Winna's getting up those photos, let me just share again where we are in terms of returning to in-person learning. So our first grade students who aren't starting this week will begin next week, starting on October 5th. And then students in grades 2 through 5 in our elementary schools we'll use the week of the 12th for safety training days to learn the new rituals and routines, and then be back in person on October 21st after some of our planning time that we have and full conference time. As a reminder, our middle school and high school students in grades 6 through 12, including in our K-8 schools, will also be back in person fully on October 21st, frequently in a hybrid setting where they're taking classes 2 days a week and engaging in virtual learning the remaining time. Whenever you've got the photos, just let me know. Our enrollment update, we wanted to just share where we are with enrollment, including the numbers of families who have chosen in-person versus virtual. Parents had, through the end of last week at the elementary level and through yesterday at secondary, today wanted in-person or online learning. 56% of our families selected in-person learning. 39% of our families selected virtual learning. And for families who didn't affirmatively make a selection, we'll be enrolling those students into our virtual programs. So not quite 60% of our kids in person, and then the remaining students will be in a virtual setting. Great. So if there are any questions, and whenever we're ready to share, it's a probably bigger lead up than it's going to be to see the photos. We just have a few photos from some of our schools this morning and the work that they're doing to welcome kids back. If you give me permission to share, if you go into participants and you name me a co-host, I can share my picture. I can share the pictures.
Got it. Doing that right now. 1 second.
Awesome. Great. I'm going to just really quickly share those pictures. Hold on. So we just have some really nice, fun pictures. Can you all see that? Let me make sure that's off.
I think we're seeing it.
Great. So this, let me just make sure I'm in the right space. There's a picture at Stedman. I believe this might be one of our kindergarten classrooms actually at Stedman. And then let me see if I can go ahead and share another picture. Oops. Here's a picture at CMS in Southwest Denver. They are bringing back a small portion of their students each day this week so they can learn the new routines and rituals. And here's a fun picture at Edison Elementary School. Parents were lining up with their students before they entered into the building to get to know their teachers and classmates. It was actually really pretty fun. Students obviously have been interacting with each other and with their teachers in a virtual environment. And so for many students, this was the first time they actually got to see their new classmates and their teachers in person. So just some really nice pictures to share.
Okay, thanks. And I can also send those if you guys are interested in getting the copies. I can send those to you. Just let me know. All right, so our first question, Melanie at Chalkbeat. I'm wondering about secondary students specifically. What percentage have chosen remote learning versus in-person learning, especially given some of the scheduling challenges at the secondary level?
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. I don't have those numbers right here in front of me. We can definitely follow up and get those out to everybody with the breakdown by grade level. And I'll try to answer some of Teeny's questions also at the same time. We do have some very challenging circumstances to schedule around at the secondary level in particular. Across all of our schools, we're requiring that students be in cohorts of no more than 35 students. That means across the school day, they can only interact with up to 35 students. Teachers can only interact with 2 groups of 35 students total. At any given time, there can only be 2 adults in a classroom with students. At the secondary level, and particularly at high school, it's incredibly challenging to come up with schedules, particularly past 9th or 10th grade, where you can keep those small number of students, the small number of teachers, and still teach all the classes that kids take to complete their graduation requirements, particularly as we think about some of the really robust offerings that many of our schools have for students, including career and technical education, AP classes, concurrent enrollment classes. And so for many of our high schools, it's been really challenging to come up with a schedule that looks like that. For our schools that are using the hybrid approach, we've asked that they make sure that they adhere to all of those same health and safety guidelines. Students can't be with more than 35, teachers can't be with more than 70 students, and that if they are in hybrid, that they strive for a minimum of 10 hours a week of live instruction, plus the remaining time engaging in virtual classes, either live through live streaming or through asynchronous classes and work time.
Thank you. And from Jackie, ¿cuántos estudiantes hay por salón y por qué se decidió regresar a los estudiantes más pequeños primero a las clases presenciales?
So, gracias, Jackie. Realmente es muy difícil para los más chiquitos aprender usando tecnología, especialmente para nuestros alumnos que todavía apenas están aprendiendo a leer. Es muy difícil usar el tiempo independiente en una manera en que pueden realmente recibir lo que necesitan en su aprendizaje. Muchos de nuestros padres de familia y también los maestros y directores nos han dicho que si podríamos, por favor, regresen a los más chiquitos más temprano, y especialmente para que tengan un tiempo para aprender las normas nuevas dentro de nuestras escuelas.
Thanks. And from Taylor at NBC, are there any discussions about whether or not students will take assessment this year?
Yeah, so thank you, Taylor. The State Department of Education here in Colorado, as well as the Federal Department of Education, has not announced any approach around waivers to state assessments. So we do anticipate that on the regular planned course that we will be offering our state assessments. In October, we will be offering a makeup SAT day for all of our seniors who missed the SAT last spring because of the stay-at-home order. We will also be offering the PSAT to our students in 11th grade, again, free of charge. For many of our students, it's a great access to many college scholarships that target students through the PSAT. All of the information that we have so far about our regular state assessments, which generally happen Some for our littlest kids, the READ Act will be happening over the next several weeks. And then our regular CMAS assessments we anticipate will be on the same timeline in the spring as typical.
Thank you. And Ginny at CPR mentions at Governor's press conference, they urged parents to enroll their children in school. Superintendent Munn said districts are seeing a sharp decline, particularly among younger students. Do you have a rough estimate on how much enrollment is down compared to last year?
So thank you. Obviously, this is an important week for all schools in Colorado. We'll be engaging in our count on October 1st, as well as looking at engagement this week. And we are seeing a decline in enrollment, particularly at the younger grades. ECE is down. Kindergarten is down. We're down a little bit in first grade. We anticipate that we'll see a decline in enrollment between 1% and 2% this year. We'll know more as we progress throughout this week.
Thank you. And from Jesus, ¿qué medidas están tomando para evitar los contagios entre los estudiantes y no tengan que volver a clases remotas por casos de coronavirus?
Gracias, Jesús. Es muy importante que todos estamos haciendo nuestra parte para protegernos uno al otro. En cada escuela, antes de pasar adentro del edificio, cada persona, inclusive yo, tenemos que pasar como un checklist respondiendo a preguntas si hay síntomas de COVID. Si uno tiene síntomas, no puede pasar. Tenemos que usar máscara mientras estamos adentro del edificio y en lugares con otra gente. Tenemos que mantener la distancia social. Los salones, como han visto, se ve poquito diferente. Estamos usando en el piso, marcando como tan grande es distancia de 6 pies, de 3 pies. Estamos usando cositas para dividir las mesas y para asegurar que todos tienen su propio espacio. Estamos tomando descansos para lavarnos las manos, usando hand sanitizer y realmente vamos a pedir a todos que si no se sienten bien, que se queden en casa. Lo bueno es que si uno no se siente bien, no puede pasar a la escuela, pero no es muy enfermo, se puede participar en clases usando tecnología. Esperamos en esta manera no tener que usar cuarentenas mucho y evitar contagión con COVID.
Thanks. And from Karen at CBS, can you explain how low enrollment could impact the district this year and years to come?
Sure. This is such an unusual year. We had anticipated a slight decline in enrollment. We're definitely seeing school-aged children leveling off in Denver, and at the lower grades, we're still experiencing the impact of lower birth rates from 2010 through 2015. And so we definitely had anticipated that we'd have fewer kids this year than we have had in the past. What we are finding right now, though, and we're finding this in Denver as well as across the metro area, is that the numbers are lower everywhere. And so it's not a case of kids leaving Denver, for example, and going to Jeffco or going to Cherry Creek. There may be some students who are doing that, but for the most part, most metro area districts are seeing that decline. And I think it still stands for all of us to see, do we see a rebound? We definitely have spoken with many families who have children 3, 4, and 5 years old in preschool and kindergarten who are simply deciding to wait a year before they send their kids to school. So we hope and anticipate that we may see a rebounding of enrollment next year. Knock on wood that we are past the stages of such high concerns around COVID. But really, I think it remains to be seen.
Thanks. And from Jackie, los maestros estarán dando clases presenciales y virtuales a la vez.
Gracias, Jackie. Depende de cada escuela, porque realmente es muy diferente en cada escuela que son las circunstancias. Estuve en una escuela hoy en la mañana en donde Tiene un maestro por grado que está dando clases virtuales y los demás, los 3 maestros demás, están dando clases presenciales. Pero en otra escuela, que es más chiquita, querían asegurar que los niños se podían estar en el mismo salón con los maestros que como empezaron, y los maestros van a tener clases en presenciales, pero siguen comunicando con los niños usando tecnología para clases virtuales al mismo tiempo.
Thanks. And for Melanie at Chalkbeat, is enrollment down in other grades? Have some older students who the district expected to attend not shown up?
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. We're particularly focused on our pathway schools. Our pathway schools, frequently their attendance starts to rebound a little bit later in the school year. And so we know our pathways look like they're a little bit lower in enrollment right now. We do have some assorted grades. And again, it really is very different around the city. Different neighborhoods have had very different experiences with COVID. And I think we'll see that there are some schools where the vast majority of kids have selected in person. We have some elementary schools where 90% of their students are selecting in person. We have some schools where it's more like 40% are selecting in person. And I think we'll see it map very closely to where we have neighborhoods that have high experiences with COVID, where we see significantly more families selecting virtual learning.
Thanks. And from Karen at CBS4, can you discuss the impact to funding? This is regards to the decreased enrollment and how count days work.
Sure, thank you. So our state uses the count day to take an official count of all of the students so that state funding can follow students based on where they're enrolled. Obviously, it has a very large impact on our ability to receive funding from the state. There are other factors that we are really focused on as well. So our free lunch forms is another way that we receive funding based on the number of students who qualify for free lunch. Even if students are in virtual learning, it's been critically important to get those forms filled out because it's a very significant source of funding based on the students who qualify for additional resources through Title I services. And so it definitely will have an impact this year. We're definitely seeing it across the state in terms of changes in enrollment, lower enrollment than we had anticipated. And I'm hopeful that as a state, we'll continue to be able to invest in education. There hasn't been a time like this ever before, and frankly, the need is so significantly higher than it has been in past years. I think it's going to be really important that we focus on how we can maintain steady funding into school districts.
Okay, I think we are done for the day. Thank you again, everyone. I think there were a couple requests for recording, and just so you're aware, we do record these and post them online, so you can look for them there.
Great, thanks everyone.